So in this video, I'm going to cover the overview of a process by which you can go through to determine the value of a property that you're looking at and potentially going to make an offer on. So the first thing you're going to want to do is to determine a set of comparable sales. So you want to find properties like the property that you are considering writing an offer on and seeing what they sold for, and that will help you determine the value of the property that you're looking at. So, what are the things to look at to basically decide whether a sold comp, as it's called, is close enough to the property that you're looking at to be included in this set? An obvious one is proximity. So, you want to find properties that are close to the property that you are looking at. And we're going to call the property you're looking at the subject property. So, you want to find comparable sales, so other houses that have sold that are nearby the subject property. You want to find properties that are of similar size. So it doesn't have to be exact. What I would typically do, let's say the property is 1,500 square feet, the subject property. You may do a search of properties that are close by that are between 1,300 and 1,700, just to kind of get a range so that you have enough properties that are going to be included in your set. And of course, this is dependent on the property that you're looking at in the neighborhood. If there are a lot of properties that are, even between 1,400 and 1,600, or are very, or there are a lot of sales that are, of the same square footage as your property, you can narrow the band. So you can kind of widen or narrow the band as necessary based on how many properties fit the criteria, because you just want to make sure that you're getting enough properties to kind of get a sense of the market. So if there are a lot of comparable sales of properties of approximately the same size as the subject, you can narrow your band of size. But if there aren't that many, then it may be required that you widen the band so that you have enough properties to be able to kind of make a determination about the market. So you want to not just consider the size of the structure, but also the lot. And so you want to make sure that the lot sizes are similar to the lot size of the property that you're looking at. And it doesn't have to be exact. You can adjust for different lot sizes, but if possible, you want to find lot sizes that are similar size. Age. So, if the subject property is built in 2010 and it's in a neighborhood where all the properties are built in the 1970s, you're going to have to adjust for that. If you can, of course, you can filter your set of comps to be only of properties that are of similar age. So if it was built in 2010, then maybe the search, from 2000 to 2020, or 2015, just to have a range of properties that are of the same vintage, meaning the same kind of era as the subject property. The layout. So even if the size of the properties are the same, so you have two houses that are approximately 1,500 square feet, for example, maybe one has 2 bedrooms and 1 bath, and the other one has 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. So you want to try to account for the bed and bath count. Obviously, all else equal, you probably want a house with more bathrooms and more bedrooms. But there's a limit to this. If you have a pretty small house, and a bunch of bedrooms, they're going to be all really small. So there's some common sense you have to apply, and maybe the best way to do this is to leave your search criteria wide, and then see what you get in the search, and then just subtract things rather than having really specific criteria up front. So maybe you just search all the houses that are 1,500 square feet, and then if you get a lot of matches, then you can then remove the ones that don't match the bed and bath count of the subject property. And the garage, you want to make sure if the subject property has a garage, you want to try to find comps that have garages too, and even the number of parking spaces. Some houses may only have a one car garage, others will have two. So you want to try to match that up too, because that does make a difference in the value. Okay, so condition and upgrades. So you want to try if you have a rehabbed property, meaning a property that's been recently fixed up. If it's especially if it's an older property, it would be good to have comparable sales for other properties that are of the same condition and level of upgrade. So there are ways to search. You'll probably have to look through the pictures to kind of determine that. Special features. So if the subject property has a pool, then you're going to want to maybe find other properties that have a pool. Again, I mentioned this already, just how many garage spaces, RV parking. So some properties have or do not have RV parking. So, just special features like this, you want to kind of account for. And then freshness. So this is basically how recent the sale is. So, the more recent a sale is, the better, because that will give you a more timely view of what the market is. So, just having newer sales are preferably better, all else equal. And of course, as I mentioned, if you put in all the criteria that are going to match your subject property, you'll probably get no matches. So basically, what you'll have to do is put in some basic stuff, probably size, age, um, and proximity. So maybe just start with these three, and then you'll see how many matches you get when you do a search, and you can do these searches on Redfin. If you have access to an MLS service, which is the multiple listing service, which is what realtors use, you can do these searches. But of course, uh, Redfin, Trulia, they have the ability for you to do these searches too. So you'll do your search maybe with these three to start off with, and then you can then narrow down the set based on how many you get, and kind of look at these other factors, and you can do adjustments too. So for example, if your property has a pool, but you find a really good comp that's very similar but that doesn't, you can basically, let's say uh, the house that's very similar but does not have a pool sold for 500K. You can estimate the value of the pool. You might determine, the cost to build the pool is, 15,000, let's say, and then just the extra headache, you tack on an extra, 10-15% just for kind of the premium of having the pool already done. And you can say, okay, so I'll add the value of my pool is 20K. So then I've determined my subject property is worth 520K. So all this stuff you can adjust for. So even like the same thing with the garage. If you find a comp that has a 2-car garage and your property only has a 1-car garage, and the comp had sold for 500K, you may determine that through just seeing other properties that just getting a sense of the market. Again, this is really related to following comps, getting a sense of the market. You determine that an extra garage space is worth 10,000. So since yours is only a 1-car garage, and this one had a 2-car garage, you're going to subtract this. So after the adjustment, you find that your property is worth 490. Okay, um, so you can take a basic set of comps and then just do these adjustments based on the specifics of your property. Okay, so what are some quirks to look out for when you're doing these? When you're finding a set of sales comps? So the school district boundaries. So this is really important because even if you do a map search, like you just look on the map and see what properties are close to your subject property, the school district boundaries may be drawn in ways that don't fit, just a proximity search. So usually for most school districts, they'll have a district map, So it's worth going in ahead of time in your market and finding the school district map to just see where how the neighborhood is divided up by school district, because one school to another may make a big difference in the value of the property. And so even though you'll have a sold comp that's close by, if it's in a different school district, you'll have to do some kind of adjustment like this if the school is better or worse for your subject property. Power lines are other turnoffs. So properties that are near power lines typically are at a discount. Other things like if it's near a halfway house, or if it's near something noisy, all these things you're gonna have to adjust for. So, or if there's like some kind of easement, meaning someone else has a right to put something across the property. So sometimes like there will be a big electrical box on certain people's properties that are just there because they it's for the whole neighborhood, but it just happens to be built on your property. So there are these kind of quirky things that you have to adjust for based on the specifics of the property you're looking at. If it's on a busy road, so if even if you do a proximity search, if your property is on a really busy road and the comps are kind of in side streets, you're gonna have to adjust for that too. So just be note that houses on busy roads are less desirable than houses off of busy roads. And then views. So even again, in just a map search on a computer, you may not capture a property that has views. You could be on a hillside, and even on one side of the street versus the next. A house right across the street might have really good views, and the house on the other side of the street has no views. So you really have to, if you're buying a house like on hills, especially, you got to be aware that some properties have views and others don't. And so again, if your subject property has a view, then you will add, you'll have to add an adjustment if you're comparing it to a property that doesn't. And if it doesn't have views and you're comparing it to a property that does, you have to subtract value. So, people pay sometimes a pretty big premium to have a property with a good view from the backyard. So, this is just something to consider. Okay, so once you've done your search, you should organize your comp set into a spreadsheet. Okay, so why do you want to do this? You can basically do certain calculations to calculate metrics. So one of the common metrics that people use is price per square foot. So let's say you had, you know, this is property number one that's in your comp set, sold for 300K, and it was for 1,200 square feet. Number two was for 280, and it was, so this is price it's sold for, and this is square feet. And let's say this one was 1180. Number three sold for 325, and it was for 1250 square feet. So if you were to do the math, you want to standardize. And let's say your subject property is 1210. Okay. So now you want to figure out, okay, what is the value? You have these three comparable sales. What is the value of my property? It doesn't have the exact same square footage. So a common metric is to calculate the dollars per square foot. So you would just take 300K divided by 1200 for the first one. So this is 250. This other one, 280K divided by 1180, 237. And the last one, 260. Okay, so you have these $3 per square foot. Let's just take the average. Let's assume all of these are equally valid, and we just want to take the average. So we just add them up, divide by 3. So we get the average here is 249. So then we can apply this average to this square footage. So you can do 1,000. So to get this value, we can just do 1210 square feet, and you multiply that by dollars, $249 per square foot. And so you see the square feet cancel, and you get 301,290. Okay, so that could be your value. You have the averages. You apply the average to your number of square feet in the subject property, and that will give you an estimate of the value based on the comps. So, this is why doing this calculation here and all this in a spreadsheet is much easier. So that's why you want to kind of organize all this stuff into a spreadsheet. Another thing you can do is, this is a little more advanced. There are certain markets where the land value is really high. So, like for example, Palo Alto. In Palo Alto, you can have an old 1950s 1,000 square foot house sell for like $2 million. Is that little house really worth that much? No. So you could do an analysis like, let's say it's sold for 2 million. The house is 1,000 square feet, and let's say the cost to construct a new house is $300 per square foot. But since this is an old house, we're going to say it's only really worth $150 a square foot. So the land value is one thing. The improvements, which is this building, is worth 150K. And so when you subtract that from 2 million, you get the land is worth 1.85 million is the land value, and the improvements are 150K. So this is a very uh, drastic example where in Palo Alto the land is very valuable. So of this $2 million, you kind of were able to break it out and see what the land is worth. And this is important, especially if you plan on just destroying this house and building a new house. Just figuring out what the land is worth is a useful analysis, because there could be just a lot next door that has no structure that's selling for 1.7 million, and so it might be worth it just to buy that lot, because in this case you're paying for a house that you're going to destroy, and you just want to make sure that you're paying something fair for the land. So just understanding what the land value is versus the improvement value, it can be a useful analysis depending on the situation. And then I've kind of talked about this. You're going to adjust for things like location, busy road versus not busy road, etc. The garage size, configuration, lot size. So, people typically prefer a larger lot, all else equal. So if your comps have larger lots compared to the subject property, then you have to kind of do an adjustment to reduce the value of your property. And again, this kind of land value analysis could be helpful in doing that. Bed bath count. So if the comps have more bathrooms, for example, and if the comp is a 3 bedroom 2 bath and yours is only a 3 bedroom 1 bath, then you'll have to adjust for that extra bedroom. So if the comp sold for 300,000, maybe subtract out 30,000 for your bathroom, so yours is only worth 270. So there's going to be some adjustment for that difference. Condition, level of upgrade. So if you have like a beater house that you're trying to buy and you're comparing it against a fixed up house, then you'll have to adjust for that. Pool, I kind of talked about that in the last slide. Landscaping, patio, age of the property, improvements, and just age of the house. All the quirks that we mentioned. And so there are some useful websites for estimating things like, if your house doesn't have a redone kitchen, but the comp does. There are some websites that I found that are very helpful to do these estimates. So one is HomeWise. So it typically, you can enter things like, let's say the replacement home or the comp home has new wood floors, and you want to see how much that costs to put in for your adjustment. HomeWise has this like cost estimator for different types of projects. And Fixer is another kind of website. So these two websites are pretty good at estimating the cost of doing construction and repairs and upgrades to your house, so that you can adjust for them properly when comparing different properties against each other. House is another one. Sorry, it got a little cut off here, but it's Houzz. Um, so these three websites are worth checking out. And even if you're like a do-it-yourselfer and you want to do some upgrades to a house that you own, these websites are really helpful to get a sense of the cost of what it would take. And so, I just wanted to make a video on the theory of how to do all this. I'm gonna make another video on actually looking at a property that's for sale and then finding the comps and like kind of doing some of these adjustments to see how it's actually done in practice. But I think it's really important to understand all the different components here, just as from a theoretical standpoint, so you have a framework to actually do the analysis. So yeah, look out for that video.